I got 141 and 2/3 chance of winning at Sacrifice. Woo!
Wrestling Podcast. Let's go, witness. He is broken in half.
And you are just a buck-toothed nepo baby who ate dog food for a weird old man.
Yeah.
Just when they think they got the answers, I change the questions.
Did he do it? Cover! Oh, and a kick out! Unbelievable! I will never retire!
I'm too hot to handle and too cold to hold. And I am the Macho King Randy Savage.
Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty!
It's me, Austin. Whoa!
Bang! Jacob 5-2 is all gas! No brakes with it! Yalla mean fire! I said WWE stands for...
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show. We don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Hey, look, are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable. Absolutely free. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get into storylines, headline PLEs, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable. Available now, totally free. That's app.wrestlerunstoppable.com. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts like John and Texas and Emily, then you got to pop over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. We got loyalty rewards. If you are a $15 a month contributor, you can co-host with me. $7.50 a month, enter into a drawing to also co-host an episode with myself. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, comments, something you want us to get into in a future episode, the only way to get that information to me is to call the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160. Give us those questions or comments, concerns, whatever it is you want us to talk about, and I will get to those, many of those, as I can in a future episode. Tonight, going to do our Raw review and go through the day's news and rumors. Let's start with Zilla Fatu, the latest member of the Anoa'i family that was spotted at the WWE Performance Center. This is exciting news if you are a fan of the Bloodline storyline. And remember years ago when Paul Heyman said that the Bloodline storyline was only entering like the 4th or 5th inning or something of that nature. Obviously, we're back into another chapter of that now, and bringing in another talent like Zilla would be a wonderful get for WWE because it adds a layer to almost like a third faction if they decided to break Jacob away, which I'm sure at some point they will, and have Zilla come in as his backup. I know that there has been a lot of conversation in the past about Zilla, his attitude in the business. He was training at Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. He was a star there, had a fallout there, went back there. He's been other places, on the independent scene and made quite a name for himself. Very, very well respected. House of Glory, Game Changer Wrestling, Reality of Wrestling. He's had championships in all those places. And most recently, 2 reigns as House of Glory Crown Jewel Champion and ROW Heavyweight Champion. So definitely has credentials, definitely has mad skills, and it doesn't surprise you. He's a member of the family. But to see that he is at the Performance Center, you have to wonder what the idea, what the thinking is. And there's so much going on Bloodline related right now. I actually thought, and we'll get into this more in depth later, but I actually think that there's opportunities there. They haven't even sunk their teeth into it. The people who are already on the roster right now, they could be very intriguing. We'll get into some of that when we go through the Raw review. Moving on, got to talk AJ Lee for a hot minute. The article came out today, I believe, on eWrestling News, where they talked about AJ Lee's contract, and apparently in her contract, there are specific protections for mental health written into her contract. This is important for 2 reasons. One, that was a huge part of why she left the company originally, but more importantly, and sounds like the selfish way of looking at things, for that to be a part of her contract means she still has a contract. She's off TV right now, no creative plans for anything to take place right now, but obviously if she has a contract, she's going to come back at some point. It's just a matter of finding something that makes sense for her to do. The program with Becky Lynch pretty much ran its course. It did what it needed to do. It was a wonderful program, And where do you go from here? And I firmly believe, and I've said it on this podcast before, that the next storyline for her, the perfect storyline for her, is when Nikki Bella comes back, having Brie and Nikki turn on Paige, and then she and Paige team up to take on the Bella Twins. And I think that should be a WrestleMania match. I really do, for the Women's Tag Team Championship. Don't know if we're going to get to see that. Don't know if the WWE agrees with me about that being the creative pitch for her. But there's been so much going on in the women's division lately. Some of these things sometimes get lost in the shuffle. And so hopefully they find a way to make sure she is relevant. They find something creative for her to do, hopefully for SummerSlam. I don't want them to rush this storyline if they can help it. And it all obviously depends on Nikki Bella's health for them to follow through with what I'm talking about doing. But either way, based on the fact that there's conversation about her contract, it's obvious to me we will see AJ Lee back in the ring sooner probably than later. A word going around this past week about Rick Martel, former WWE legend, not being in the Hall of Fame yet. And there was a report out that he was asked to join the Hall of Fame and declined. That he's been asked several times and declined, and various reports to that effect. He actually released a clarifying statement on X, which I thought was really a great thing for him to do because so many people are curious about what the truth is. In his statement, he said, in 2015, I was offered to appear at Access in San Francisco and attend the Hall of Fame as a spectator. He said, flattered, I still turn it down as I was not ready to go back to a wrestling appearances like I am now. He clarified by saying, I didn't turn down an offer to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, thank you. Which sounds very much like he would not be opposed to that Hall of Fame induction, and maybe we see that happen. I know Triple H has done a great job of bringing in talent from the past who, for one reason or another, hadn't been put into the Hall of Fame, and people like Bruno Sammartino, the Ultimate Warrior. Obviously, Rick Martel doesn't have anywhere near the baggage that those people did, and they were able to get things done, and I think he absolutely deserves it. You're talking about a former AWA World Heavyweight Champion, a guy who held the WWE Tag Team Championships on more than one occasion, did a great character change going from a baby face to one of the best on-screen heels, and putting on one of the most entertaining, weird, strange WrestleMania matches ever against Jake the Snake Roberts in that blindfold match. So yeah, I would love to see him get into the Hall of Fame. There's so many people in there that I'm not a huge fan of. He's somebody I would love to see. The other big story of the week before we get to Raw was about Vince McMahon and the conversation about the lawsuit from shareholders about the sale of WWE to TKO, and the fact that there has been a agreement reached. It's not public record, so we don't know what the agreement and terms were, but that case is being discontinued, taken away, canceled, whatever word you want to use for it. And by doing this, it's going to keep any conversation about sexual misconduct for Vince McMahon out of the court system as well. In that court case, he's still trying to move things to arbitration to avoid things coming out and being public record. But this is certainly a win for Vince McMahon. One, obviously, they don't have to go to court and trial and everything about the sale of the company, which, if you look at, and I've said this before, stockholders in TKO cannot be upset. They have paid money hand over fist. The company keeps reporting massive gains. The stock keeps skyrocketing. So I don't know what they're upset about. They got a great return on their investment either way. But there is apparently some kind of arrangement to compensate these people who were complaining that they didn't get a good enough deal, or there was some insider trading or whatever. I don't care. I really don't care. At this point, it has been removed from the calendar in the Delaware Court of Chancery, and it is essentially over. And that makes it so Vince McMahon can now focus on his other lawsuit, which I'm not going to go into details. Again, it's been done to death. Lots of opinions and feelings and emotions and thoughts about that court case as well. I would not be surprised to see Vince McMahon completely be exonerated there too. Not because I think he's guilty or innocent or anything like that, just because of the way things are structured and the way this guy always seems to find a way out of things. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Got to get into Raw. Raw was an interesting show tonight. The show kicked off with the Queen of the Ring tournament. Becky Lynch, Liv Morgan, Alexa Bliss, and Chelsea Green. And I got to tell you, Chelsea Green was on tonight. She was phenomenal tonight. I feel like they missed an opportunity because obviously the winner, if you're watching the show already, or if you're not, I'm going to spoil it for you. Liv Morgan picks up the win. She goes on to the next round of the tournament. Chelsea Green looked like a superstar here. And what better trophy, per se, to give her than the Queen of the Ring? It totally fits her character, fits everything that she's been doing. I don't know why they wouldn't jump on that. I actually think that would have been the best play for them here. I would like to see her win the whole thing. She doesn't have to win the World Championship, even though I wish she would. But she would have been perfect to have the crown and wear the crown for a year. That would have been wonderful for her. Instead, we see Liv Morgan pick up the win after Chelsea Green looked like she was about to win. And I apologize because I kind of breezed over the beginning of the show. The beginning of the show, all the walking into the arena stuff that they always do. And then we had Oba Femi in the ring, and there's a little exchange between he and Dominic Mysterio because they have their match coming up next week. And in the process, at one point, JD McDonough came out and hit him in the back with a chair. It did nothing. He basically jacked the two of them up big time. Dom did hit a 619 that really didn't do much. He ended up getting caught coming off the turnbuckles and thrown across the ring, and it was good stuff to set up next week. I still think Brock Lesnar is going to cost Obafemi the tournament. I don't know who you have win the tournament, and we'll get to more of that later on when we get to the men's qualifying match that took place tonight, but it was solid, I guess, you know. Obafemi is so over. He couldn't even speak barely tonight because the fans wouldn't stop cheering for the guy, which I love. I mean, this is an organically grown guy. He's a guy who started in WWE system, worked his way through, and is so over with the crowd that they just want nothing but Oba. Dominic Mysterio, likewise, I'm sure they had plenty of stuff planned for Dominic to say, and he couldn't say most of it because you couldn't stop the chants from booing the living crap out of him. So, interesting stuff, you know. It was a good segment. JD McDonough kind of got ragdolled, but whatever. And then back, of course, then that's when after that is when we had the Liv Morgan win. After that, we go to a segment in the back where we have Ethan Page talking trash about the Penta Ray match. We had Chad Gable approach Penta looking for forgiveness, which of course he got. We had Seth Rollins talking to Montez Ford. The Usos end up showing up, and there's some back and forth there where basically Rollins makes it clear that his issue is with Roman Reigns, not with the family, but whatever. But he does throw some shade at the Usos, which I think is important because I think we're leading up to a tag team match with the Usos against Seth Rollins and Montez Ford, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Then the next match we get, because we got to talk about that, because we get so many of these backstage segments and commercials that there's not as much wrestling as you'd like to have sometimes. But we did get to see Sol Ruca and Lyra Valkyria, and I actually thought the match itself was pretty solid, top to bottom, to be perfectly honest with you. And the fans seem to be really into this. The Soul Snatcher finish for this match was really, really interesting. Lyra Valkyria going for a kick of sorts, getting tied up in the ropes, leading to the Soul Snatcher and the retention for Sol Ruca. Of course, she was going to retain in her first defense, but it was really well done. I actually enjoyed the match. I thought it was worthwhile. After that, the Usos are talking to Jacob Fatu because earlier they had told him to handle Seth Rollins, and he kind of blew them off. He made it clear that he acknowledges Roman Reigns, nobody else. And he also cautioned them that they need to be watching out for LA Knight, who the next segment led into. LA Knight coming to the ring. He seemed to be very over with the crowd, which I know in recent weeks people have been critical of the fact that he wasn't getting the kind of reactions he got in the distant past, but he certainly got a huge reaction tonight. And then you couple that with the fact that, Jey Uso also super over in Paris. He had to, run it back and do his wave into the crowd over and over again, which I'm fine with. But every time LA Knight would cut him off, the fans would start to boo. And I don't want to see the fans turn on LA Knight. I don't want to see that. I really, really don't. We're going to see the two of them in the ring on Friday at SmackDown for the King of the Ring qualifying tournament. I suspect the two of them are going to have extensive back and forth interaction. I'm not sure who comes out of that match as the winner. I wouldn't be opposed to LA Knight being the one. I wouldn't be opposed to Jey Uso coming out as the one. But then when you look at it, Finn Balor I don't think is realistic. I really don't. So I don't think they'll go there, and that's really your only other option that could theoretically, if you're trying to build something, really make a push there. I'm really sad we're not going to see people like Drew McIntyre in the tournament. I think if nothing else, maybe you could do an angle where Drew McIntyre would attack Finn Balor in the back and then open the door for him to go in, and he could be the winner of that match, because I would love to see a final of Obafemi versus Drew McIntyre. But that's just me fantasy booking in my brain and not really, knowing where to go with it. I don't think there's any chance Royce Keys wins on Friday. So this was all good. This was a good setup for Friday's show. It was a good thing to set up the tension between LA Knight and Jey Uso. Jimmy Uso still looking almost like the voice of reason, but also almost more like a lackey, which I don't like. I think it's time Jey and Jimmy both had their spotlight. So Jay's had his for the last couple years. Jimmy needs a little bit. He's been doing great work, and I'd love to see him get more. They do go on to Chad Gable catching up with Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee in the back. Again, they don't need him to give any apologies or anything like that. Mysterio accepts it, talks about it, and then also points out that he needs to think back prior to putting the mask on and maybe fix some things there, which I would assume would be Alpha Academy. Now, the beautiful thing about this, and I don't know if people are thinking about it this way, is if he were to go try to reconcile with Alpha Academy, that would include Maxime Dupree. Now, the Seth Rollins stuff has to end with the Vision sooner rather than later. But then what are you going to do with the Vision? So what Chad Gable is beyond over right now. Would it not be interesting to see him go try to reconcile with Alpha Academy? And then when he's trying to reconcile with Maxime Dupree, have something break out between he and Austin Theory. I'd be okay with that. And then integrate Chad Gable into the Vision's next, feud or whatever, if it leads to him getting pushed. I really want to see him get a push. He does have more to do tonight because we get to the Penta versus Rey Mysterio, like a dream match. It happened in Lucha Underground, but it's been 10 years. I think it's 2016 exactly when they had their match in Lucha Underground, which was also phenomenal. This match, it was pretty solid for the majority of the match. I didn't like the end of the match, and I didn't like how almost, I don't want to say effortlessly, but certainly not the finish that I thought we'd see from this type of match. Penta does retain with a Mexican Destroyer, which I guess I understand, but I still think there's so much more meat on that bone. They could have told a much bigger story than what they did. Roxanne Perez is in the backstage thing with Liv Morgan, apologizing for being upset the previous week. Obviously, they could end up in the finals together, and kind of sweep it under the rug. I think that's what they're building to, honestly, is something between Liv and Raquel, where Liv in some way, shape, or form is going to cost Raquel. Raquel's going to cost Liv. They're going to face each other, I think, at SummerSlam, and somebody else will go on to face Jade coming out of the tournament, or Raquel is just going to win the tournament and challenge Liv. And it's almost like an old school Evolution thing where Batista turns on Triple H and chooses to face him. I'd be okay either way. I really would. I know they've talked about they're waiting for Stephanie Vaquer to come back and to pick up that storyline again. I'm over it. She's been gone long enough. I'm ready for Raquel to get her shot against Liv, and we need Liv to be in there with somebody. And I don't mean in a qualifying match for the tournament. I mean, she needs to defend that championship. People used to complain about people like Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns never defending. We haven't seen a defense from Liv Morgan since she won the championship. We've seen 2 from Roman already. We haven't seen anything from Cody really either. Nothing of substance, so we need to start seeing more of that. And then, of course, we get to the main event. Seth Rollins, Javon Evans, Tala Tonga, and Ricky Saints for the men's King of the Ring qualifying tournament. The shocker here, the winner's the shocker. The setup is not. Now, obviously, the Vision get involved again. Cost Seth Rollins looked like he had the win. Ricky Saints kind of looked like he was the one who was going to take the fall no matter what when going into this match. Tala Tonga needs to stay strong. And this is where, and I said this earlier, I said I would get to this later on when we got into the later part of the show. I would love to see Tala Tonga leave the MFTs and join with Jacob Fatu, if they do, in fact, bring in Zilla and create a third faction. I think that would be really interesting. Or at least do something more substantial. Or have him get recruited by the Usos and the OTC. I think that would be interesting as well. Anyways, he looks solid in the match, gets taken out on the outside, which is important to do so he can protect his character. Inside the ring, Seth Rollins looks like he's going to beat Ricky Saints, and with the outside interference by both Austin Theory pulling a ref's leg when he's trying to count to 3, and eating a spear from Braun Breaker, leading to Javon Evans hitting a huge OG cutter on Ricky Saints to pick up the win, and Javon Evans will advance in the tournament, which I think is an interesting swerve. Not what I saw coming, but one that I fully support. I think it's a great idea. He's an incredible talent, super over with the fans, and that's exactly what you want to see in the later rounds of a tournament like this. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to Suno for creating the music and sound effects we use in the show. Today's show is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bring a new friend to family game night. It's easy with Sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to thegamecrafter.com and picking up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, maybe you're considering college or university life, maybe you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking some time with us tonight. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.
Wrestling Podcast.